What time is it? One more minute. Come on, minute. Move along.
This is 1 year.
Oh, that went right over my head.
I can't, yeah, that email today.
Good evening and welcome to this evening's Crestwood Board of Education regular board meeting. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Ms. Janoon, please take roll.
Mrs. Berry?
Here.
Ms. Delzayat?
Here.
Ms. Fawaz?
Here.
Myself, Ms. Kaminsky?
Here.
Mr. Saba?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance. All rise, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda, you amend it? Amend the agenda? Okay, we're going to go ahead and amend the agenda to include voting for treasurer tonight. If we can add that on there? We're going to add it right after, before we do the consent agenda.
Before we do the consent agenda?
Yes. Okay, we're going to open up the floor and take any nominations.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Kaminsky.
I nominate Sel Fawaz for treasurer.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Can we just say this? Is there anybody that would like to nominate themselves? Because you can do that, and if not, then
I know your situation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Otherwise, I would love to do it, but I
Okay.
can't do it for,
All right. With that
I'll do
being
it.
said,
I nominate Danielle as that. That is my nomination.
okay.
Support.
Okay, we have a nomination on the floor for treasurer from Mr. Saba, for Ms. Danielle Elzayat, supported by Ms. Fawaz. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Danielle. Okay, you are
Congratulations,
the
Danielle.
new
Thank you.
treasurer. All right, Ms. Janoon, please read the consent agenda.
Board of Education approval is recommended for the items listed on the consent agenda, which include the November 8th, 2021 board agenda, the minutes from the study session on Monday, October 25th, 2021, the minutes from the regular meeting on Monday, Monday, October 25th, 2021, and the check registry dated October 1st through October 31st, 2021.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from, it's recommended that the Board of Education approval is recommended for the items listed on the consent agenda, which include the November 8th, 21 board agenda, the minutes from the study session on Monday, October 25th, 21, the minutes from the regular meeting on Monday, October 25th, 21, and the check registry dated October 1st through October 31st, 2021. All in favor signify by saying, is there any discussion? No? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're gonna move on to the
Board
presentation by Kenlock, the board brightener.
Yes,
Okay, Dr. Gonsalves, if you have
that's
anything to
okay.
say.
Good evening, Madam President, Board, and community. I would like to invite, Mrs. Jill Choker and her Kenlock team. Joe Marvesio, sorry, what did I come that, what did I say? Mrs. Jill Marvesio and her Kenlock team. Okay, and.
Change the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I want to appreciate and thank them for being here because Mrs. Marvesio had volunteered to bring the Kenlock team over to present their school improvement plan. As I had mentioned to the board this summer and in the early fall, our school district is moving forward with school improvement plans that fit our district improvement plan. Each school identifies a plan based on the data that they have, wherein they feel that they can make gains and identify areas of strength as well as areas of growth for each individual school. So we are asking that each school is going to have a date where they're going to come, present their school improvement plan to the board, so that the board is aware of the direction we are headed at each school. Again, I am so thankful to have Jill Marveso here and her team, so thank you, Jill, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Well, thank you, Dr. Masalam. Good evening, Board of Education, and Dr. Masalam, Dr. Lazar, Ms. Morgan, and Ms. O'Hara. We are so glad to be here and have this opportunity to share with you our continuous school improvement plan. It's continuous because it's ongoing. This year, we've obviously as a district made some changes with our district local assessment, moving from NWEA to iReady. We'll be talking about some of those data points and where our students are performing. I would like to start by welcoming our continuous improvement team. Not all the members are here as they serve on other committees. Jill Marveso, principal at Kenlock Elementary.
Deanna Yesenchak, second grade teacher at Kenlock. Hi, Dina Kismarchak, literacy coach at Kenlock Elementary.
Julie Snook, third grade at Kenlock Elementary.
Hello, Sarah Murray, EL resource teacher at Kenlock Elementary.
And Jenny Tier, Title I teacher at Kenlock.
Here's where we stand at Kenlock. As you're well aware, we have a very good problem with enrollment increasing. Last year, we were able to welcome 2 new classroom teachers, moving from 17 classrooms to 19. We still are at 19 classroom teachers with multiple support staff and 1 Young Fives classroom, which we're ecstatic about. Having our young 4-year-olds start their academic career at Kenlock has truly been very successful. Our numbers are continuing to increase. We're at 517, although I made this last week as I was working on the data presentation, and I think already we're at 519 as of today. So we're increasing our enrollment each and every day, which is a great problem to have.
So Kenlock, we have 3 goals that align to the school district's improvement plan. We have literacy, which has reading and writing. We have numeracy that covers our math skills, and then our social emotional learning.
All right, so I'm going to start with the first goal this evening. We're going to talk about reading, and our reading goal is we want to make sure that all students at Kenlock improve their abilities to read, comprehend, and respond in orally and in writing. We're going to be using iReady and BASS as well as MSTEP as our data points. All right, so this is our iReady reading overall placement. As you can see, we have some work to do, but as always, we are up for the challenge. While we will make sure that all students are being delivered instruction to meet their individual needs, our focus is we are going to really focus on the students in the yellow. And we will make sure that, like I said, support staff, we believe in our abilities to get the job done. So we are excited to see progress being made.
IRIPS. So since the Read by Grade 3 law came into effect, we're required to notify our families with IRIPS. This year, you can see the percent of students that will be receiving them at parent-teacher conferences. Kindergarten, we use a letter ID test along with the iReady scores. And grades 1, 2, and 3, it's the BASS reading level and the iReady. So we use those 2 data points to determine who's going to receive the IRIPS.
Okay, these are WIDA scores over the past 3 years. WIDA is concentrated on 4 domains, which is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And as you can see, levels 3 and 4, which is expanding and developing, is where a majority of our students are. Our focus for the EL classrooms is to focus more on writing, because that will get them to where they need to be in the program. And these are Kenlock's priorities and action steps. So Kenlock, and I wrote this down because this was kind of a good one. Kenlock's small group instruction target is for individualization needs. But we're teaching the instruction targets delivering complex reading for whole group. We have this great resources at Kenlock. We have a book room that was developed this year with all levels of reading for all classroom teachers, for all students. And our classroom libraries are pretty stacked with different genres of reading throughout. We have LLI implemented in every classroom with interventionists and classroom teachers both teaching it. We have the use of thinking maps in there. That's been going on, and our literacy coach coaches all teachers on literacy instruction.
Next, this is a big, I want to bring to everyone's attention, a board brightener, as I would say. It's an initiative that I am very passionate about, and it's our writing goal. When we think of literacy, we don't just think of reading. We think of reading and writing as a partnership. So our writing goal is that students at Kenlock will be able to recognize and write different genres of narrative, informational, and opinion text that follows the Common Core state standards. When we're going to start looking at writing, we're going to use iReady reading data as well as our 3rd and 4th graders M-STEP data. When we looked at trend data in the past, writing was definitely an area where our students struggled. And so this is an area that our whole entire building, as you'll see on the next few slides, have really taken charge of and are continuously making improvements for the success of our students. Some of the priority and action steps that are taking place, we tried last year. It was a little difficult being virtual and then the 2 days that the kids were in session. But this year we started in September with a bang. As far as administering writing assessments, we're working on common grade level writing assessments for all 3 text types. We have the use of thinking maps, which is a district initiative that teachers are utilizing in conjunction with graphic organizers and planning sheets that our kids can get their thinking down on paper before they actually start writing their full piece. Teachers are modeling using textual evidence. That is something that from 3rd grade on, they're gonna have to be able to do, is go back in the text and cite the evidence and support their writing using that textual evidence. We've maintained and established writing folders in kindergarten and 1st grade, as well as writing binders in 2nd and 4th grade. So if you would ever visit Kenlock and you asked a student to see their writing folder or writing binder, let me tell you how excited they truly would be. I can share our kickoff date this year was October 15th. We had every classroom teacher working with students to establish their writing binders. These are writing portfolios that will stay with the kids during their whole academic career at Kenlock. We say they're like sacred. They can't go on the kids' desks. We have specific rules they follow and procedures. The excitement to see the growth a student makes over the course of their academic career, whether it's K4 or K5, it's going to be housed in the folder or the binder. There's some pictures of how excited the kids were when we kicked this off on October 15th, and everyone was able to take part in our Kenlock's quality writing. Inside the folder or the, I don't know what I did. There we go. Okay. Inside the binder folder, you'll see tabs. So the kids have their binders set up organizationally, so they know exactly where to put all of their writing pieces. The goal in the end is for our kids to leave Kenlock and have a plethora of writing examples for all of the text types that they can look back and see all the growth they've made as a writer. In the binder, you'd have a tab for writing tools, opinion writing, informational, narrative, and then tab 5 starts late in 2nd grade when they have to do a text-dependent analysis and constructed response type of writing. which again, they would see on M-STEP in 3rd and 4th grade.
So another goal that we're reaching here at Kenlock is a numeracy goal, and we would like all students to show growth in mathematical computation and problem solving. We'll be using sorry, I'm breathing it, but we'll be using the iReady assessments to help us gauge their math performance, as well as working with them in class and with the M-STEP for the 3rd and 4th grade. For our current math placement by iReady for our first time through, you notice that there's a lot of yellow on our screen. That yellow means that those children are 1 grade level below where they should be at this time. It shows the significant importance, as well as your orange and red. Those are for 2 or more grade levels below in mathematics. So there is a significant need for us to continue working in the area of mathematics and growth, so that children can grow.
If I may ask, what do you think has contributed to that?
Well, I'm not sure. Part of it can be the pandemic. Maybe it's the need in a curriculum change or something of that sort that we might need. Also, we spend a lot of time, because of the reading law, having interventionalists for reading, but maybe we need to start looking at some math interventionalists to come into the buildings. Because once they hit 3rd grade, it's so much more difficult. And so we're already seeing that most of this yellow from the other data we saw was their numbers and operations, and that's their major component. So if you're gonna ask my opinion, I would say we need some more additional support and things like that in the area of mathematics.
And if I can just add on to that to answer your question as well, I think it's a new platform for the kids.
Yeah.
iReady was brand new to the students. They were used to taking NWEA and what that test looks like, the types of questions they're exposed to. So I think having a new testing platform and a new diagnostic might have thrown some of our students off a little bit. However, this is great data to use and compare to when they take it the 2nd time, which will be in January. Now that the kids are on their individualized learning path and they're understanding how iReady works and the types of questions they're being asked, the way they're worded, the vocabulary, I'm thinking that we might see this change significantly. Not only with the instruction, but just the exposure of iReady itself, because it's new district-wide.
So will we have a follow-up to this, Dr. Masalam, to know what the growth is and where we're at?
The follow-up will be the data that I provide the board after our spring testing.
Perfect, thank you.
And on that note, some of our priorities and action steps for numeracy, the big one on top is we're using the essential skills and concepts from the MDE. They sent out to us what they felt were most essential skills that we need to teach in order to bring kids up, especially after the pandemic, in the area of math. Explicit instruction, individualized learning goals, a lot of math intervention we'd hope to get with some push-in, and just using informal assessments in the Common Core and just kind of getting more into hopefully smaller groups with students to kind of build them up and build it back down.
The next goal, social emotional learning goal, is every year we try to reduce the amount of office discipline referrals or ODRs, and by the end of the year we hope to have none. And so here are some of the steps we're going to take in order to reach that goal. Mind you, the kids haven't been playing with each other for the last year and a half, so starting in September with here's how to be respectful, here's how to be responsible with our hands, here's how to let somebody go in front of you on the slide, here's what happens when you get hurt, how can you help somebody else, starting with the basic and kind of front-loading all those types of behaviors with procedures and routines as well. Another thing we were doing is explicit SEL instruction. We have Alia Beydoun coming in for a 2nd step weekly in the classrooms, and two-way communication for families. We are using Seesaw, we are using Remind, not only for academics, but also reporting behaviors, positive behaviors as well. This is what we're saying, different things like that. The last thing is monthly character traits. We're in the month of November and we're doing gratitude, whether that is writing a gratitude poem, Maybe you have a gratitude jar in your classroom, and starting soon, we're gonna have students write either a quote or a phrase, and say them on daily announcements for gratitude. And there's our flowers.
There's a day in the life of our Kenlock students. You can see just the excitement, the smiles on their faces. These kids truly love coming to school and making Kenlock their second home. Some of them spend more time at Kenlock than they actually do, you know, at their house because of things that they have going on. So you can see up here, we have small group instruction. This is actually an LLI group that was taking place. We have our special areas, art, music, gym, STEAM enrichment. See some of the artwork. You can see our lovely secretary, Shar Stevens, dressing up in the blow-up koala costume. We're gonna put Dr. Masalam in that one day. And just in the corner over there, how excited our young 5 students were when we got our wood chips on the playground. So we wanted to share.
Don't forget the cone.
In my traffic cone that my parents are partnering with us, making sure our parking lot is very safe.
Better than it's been in decades.
Really nice.
Very nice.
And I don't know where my koala went, Eric. There he is. We'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I know it was a lot of information.
Yeah, it was very
Any
nice.
questions from any of the board members? I do appreciate what you said about going back to basics. That's so important. I think that a lot of us have forgotten that we are reteaching because they have missed quite a bit of time. So I appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Alzayat?
I just wanted to say thank you. We know it's not easy, especially during this pandemic, so thank you, and please pass the message on to all of the Kenlock school, and all the schools, really. But great job, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Sabo?
You can't fake cohesiveness, okay? And you can't fake compassion, because compassion shows people can fake being nice, but you can't fake compassion. And you guys just have this cohesiveness and compassion for what you do, and I want to thank you, because I think it shows in the details in this report. And just remember, this paper is worthless if it's not applied, right? So, but I just wanted to thank you guys. This is great.
Mr. New?
And I just want to say thank you as well. We know that, we hear about all of the changes, and I think it's nice to actually see what you guys are doing, because like I said, I mean, we hear about it all the time. Dr. Masam's always, you know, bringing us stuff, and again, it's just really nice to see, and we appreciate you guys, even though sometimes you don't see us very often, or, you know, in your day-to-day, but
don't hear it enough.
or you don't hear it enough, but we definitely appreciate it, and thank you guys.
Ms. Kaminsky?
And you know what I noticed? Even through the mask, you could see smiles
Yeah.
on all of your faces. So.
Don't worry, we all got them.
And it is appreciated. We miss going to Kenlock for some of the presentations and everything, so it's nice that you guys came here. So thank you.
Ms. Ballard, anything?
Not much more I can say that everyone else hasn't already said. So thank you again to, you know, Principal Marveso, the entire staff, and looks like, and it does, you can see it in the kids' faces, how happy they are and how happy they are to be face to face and, you know, just to be there. And I love Kenlock.
Nice job, guys.
Madam President, if I just may, again, I want to thank the Kenlock team for being here. You put in long days, you do a lot of things behind the scenes, you know, our Kenlock staff as well as the staff across the district. A lot's been thrown at them. These last 2 months have been stressful. These last 2 months have been, you know, it's been a struggle on many different avenues, and I just want all of you to know that it does not go unseen or unnoticed. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for putting the kids where they need to be up front and foremost. Thank you again.
And we can't wait for the results. Okay.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate you, Mrs. Marveso. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
God, sometimes I wish these things weren't recorded. And Madam Chair, our next presentation is from our auditing firm to discuss our audit review. Mrs. Morgan, is there anything you would like to prelude with prior to the beginning?
No,
Please.
I don't think so, but this is Renee Gukian from Taylor & Morgan, and she did our audit this year. She was our team leader for the audit. So I'm going to turn it over to Renee.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here in person too, since last year we did this all via Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so this is our second year auditing the district, so, and my first time in person. So, I have worked with Ms. Morgan at her previous district, and we have a good working relationship. I will tell you that the books and records were in great shape this year. Last year, I think, was a year of transition for your business office as a whole. You know, Dr. Masalam, it was his first year. It was Ms. Morgan's, Penny's first year. COVID happened, you know, whole new central office staff essentially. And then, you know, March, everybody sent home to work remote. So, you know, the business office as well as your teaching staff and the board had to punt and kind of figure out how to handle all of those changes. And I think last year's audit, you know, we had some adjustments. It was our first year as auditors, the staff's first year, so no one had that historical knowledge, you know. And this year was so much smoother. The books and records were in great shape. We had that, everyone involved had that extra year under their belt, and it was just a much better experience for, I think, all of us. Plus, you know, the state extended the deadline a month. We just had all kinds of craziness in the past year and a half. So, let me see here. So your auditor's opinion is the opinion that the district receives from their auditors. You received an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance. So that means we didn't have any adjustments, any scope limitations. We didn't have any issues with obtaining information from the staff at the district or the attorneys that work with the district or anything of that nature. The audit was conducted in accordance with our generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. So the way a school district gets their money is based on the number of students they have. So this shows your trend of student enrollment, the blended student enrollment, over the last 5 years. So last year, it looks like you had an increase of 18 students on the blended. And it sounds like you may be up again for this year as well, listening to the previous presentation, at least at Kenlock, which I'm assuming that spreads district-wide. So you were up last year, and you'll see with the state's foundation allowance was flat last year. So while you had more students, slightly more, they only gave you $8,246 per student in order to provide the education to those students. Now the district, I wonder why that says east up there, but anyway, ignore the east. But the district receives its money through a combination of state aid and property taxes. So if you look at the largest kind of bluish purple piece of the pie there, it shows 79% of the district's revenue for general fund comes from state aid. That's that $8,246 per student times the number of students blended through the 2 pupil counts. Then there's that little sliver, or the next biggest piece, well actually the third biggest piece, 8% of property taxes. So if you add those two together, that's 87% of your money comes from state aid, which essentially comes from the number of pupils that you have. Then you also have quite sizable federal grants. I should have put it last year federal grants was, because it's much bigger this year due to some of the COVID-19 relief, coronavirus relief funding that I'm sure you have been in discussions with. So the federal grants pie is larger this year and it's going to be even bigger next year. Now your expenditures, you'll see salaries and benefits are 84%. And purchase services is 8%. So that means the district is a people business. And you can't, there's only so much you can do to cut costs. You know, because if you have to cut costs anywhere, you're basically going to be cutting staff positions. That's really the only way that you can really save money in a budget situation. Because such a large portion of the expenditures to run the district is based on salaries and benefits, and the purchase services is also quite heavy, you know, salaries from contract services that you have hired those things out rather than using district employees. Supplies and
Sorry, if
materials.
I have a question about that. Do we have many contracted out?
This was last year, right?
But that's also with Dean Transportation in there.
Are we
Okay,
talking
there you
about?
go.
Okay.
So it's busing. That,
That's why
that
it's
one
so
is
much.
primarily busing. Some districts, contract out custodial, cafeteria services. It's kind of gone in and out of, fashion. Some districts have found good success with that. Some have tried it and reverted back, found it wasn't worth it. So it's kind of a district to district thing. I think some, they always don't get the services they think they're going to get when they try to go private contract. So you just have transportation in there. So this shows your general fund revenues and expenditures. You'll see the top darker line is your revenue line. So the past 4 years, your revenue has always exceeded your expenditures. And you'll see by quite a significant amount for this year and the previous year. And here's a summary that shows numbers. So your revenue this past year was 51.2 million. Your expenditures were 47.2 million approximately. Other financing sources and uses, that's some transfers in between funds, some intra-district items and things of that nature. So you added 3.5 million to fund balance this year and 2.5 million to fund balance the year before, which those are some impressive numbers. You'll notice 18-19, you had a loss of $200,000 almost. So the current administration this is where it changed about halfway through this year. So here's the fund balance trajectory. Back in 17-18, you were at 7.2 million. This year, you're at 13 million in your general fund balance.
Can I ask a question about that? Is that due to ESSER funds going back in there, or?
No.
Do we have those divided?
So what happens, the federal grant money, you only, I guess I'm trying to think of the best way you only recognize the federal grant money when it's spent.
Okay.
So that money doesn't show up in there until there is about 800,000, but it's in deferred revenue, so we move it out until you've actually spent it on allowable expenditures. So that is not sitting in that 13 million.
Okay.
And the ESSER money, most of it isn't received until this school year. So it wasn't received by June 30th. So there was a small portion of ESSER, not the ESSER 2 and 3, which is the substantial ESSER funding. That's gonna happen in 21, 22.
So that's separate then?
Mhm.
Okay.
And those are, there's some flexibility to those, but they are federal grants. So there's rules of how they can be spent. There's all kinds of different stipulations and criteria that you have to meet on, the other, I would say the coronavirus relief funds are slightly less restrictive than, say, Title I funding, special ed, federal IDEA funding, those are national school lunch funding, those are very restrictive of how they can be spent. The ESSER funding has a little bit broader range, So the reason it's important to have a substantial fund balance is because your state aid payments, if you look right here, your due from other governmental units is almost $10 million. So this is what your balance is as of June 30th. So if you did not have at least $10 million in fund equity, you would have to borrow. Because it shows what the state of Michigan owes you and the federal government. It's a combination of grants receivable and state aid receivable and such. As of June 30th, you don't receive all of that cash in your bank account until August. So you wouldn't be, we've had many districts, you guys don't have a state aid anticipation note. I'm not sure if you're familiar, it's like short-term borrowing for schools that need to bridge that gap because you don't receive all of your funding for June 30th until August. And then you don't get your first payment for the next school year until October. So there's this funding gap that can cause a cash shortage if you don't have that fund equity, kind of like your savings account.
May I just add too?
Yeah.
This is, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is why a lot of districts have to borrow in the summer in order to
Yes.
make
Yes, yes, yes.
and we don't have to borrow?
In order to cover payroll. Because that's your main expense in the summer months, right? Is to cover payroll or any other, custodial projects and things of that nature. That's why they do that short-term borrowing. And it's called a state aid anticipation note. And it's usually very low interest. But, and that comes out, a lot of districts have it come right out of their state aid payments. And then, go ahead.
And the reason we have to do that, or is because the state's fiscal year is October to August, and our fiscal year is July to June. So that's why we have that big 2-month gap that they owe us those funds.
But we have to, with accrual accounting, we have to book it back to June 30th. The state's year end ends September 30th. So they start up October 1st with their next year, so there's a mismatch there for those 3 months. So July and August, you're receiving money from the previous year, and then October, you start receiving money for the next year. So that's why it's important to have that, the healthy fund balance.
Mr. Sabo?
Madam Chair, do you find that many school districts are adjusting their fiscal year to the state, or?
Nope, they are not.
Okay.
They're required, your school districts are required to have a June 30.
One of the questions I have around capital, well, I'm jumping ahead.
Okay, we'll do questions at the end.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so this shows your general fund balance as a percentage of your expenditures in relation to the state average. So you have a 27.53% fund balance, and that is almost 50 days of school to equivalent it. The state average is 16%, 29 days of school. In the little footnote there at the bottom says that's equivalent to a household with a $50,000 annual income having $13,765 in a savings account, if you think of it that way, you know, for cash flow. So, you know, you're supposed to have 6 months emergency fund, you know. As a school, you've got 49.55 days. That's almost 2 months of, you know, school year, school days, if you will. Capital Projects Fund, so this looks funny, but you had bond money back in 2018, spent it down, and then it went up a little bit in 21 because of the energy bond. So you issued new bonds, $2.5 million. So it was down. The 2018 bond is pretty much spent down, and then you reissued some new bonds, so now you have that money available to spend going forward.
I'm
Food
sorry, I have a question about that. Can you, remind me what those new bonds were?
The energy bonds?
Okay.
It was the new bonds were 2.575, I believe, in energy improvement bonds.
Is it train?
Yeah.
Okay,
Was that the only one?
yes.
Yeah.
We refunded, almost $2 million of, I believe it was the 2011 bond. So that shows as bonds issued but then redeemed. But the only new bonds issued were the energy bonds.
And to remind the board that 2011 was what was borrowed, the district borrowed that money. It wasn't a voted upon bond.
Right.
There was that confusion a couple years ago about what was that. That was borrowed money from the district, but that was refunded.
Okay. This is the food service fund. As you'll see, kind of some strange things going on in food service the past year and a half, 2 years because of COVID. But the district is free and reduced district-wide, as all districts in the state of Michigan were in 2021. So the whole state was free and reduced. Everyone got free lunch, free breakfast, whatever. So you'll see the revenue here is lower this year because here you had some paid lunches, some paid staff lunches, some paid student lunches. But then this year, everything came from state aid, through the federal lunch program. You'll see then the expenditures. So there was an increase to fund balance in the food service program last year as well. And that stays in that fund so that it can be used for, you know, equipment, improvement, things like that for that fund. Community education, you'll see a significant, well actually their revenues were up a little bit because they received some coronavirus relief money in this fund as well. So while you'll see the increase in revenue, that smaller, darker blue line, that is to keep that program going, keep that staff employed. There were some coronavirus relief fund dollars received in community education as well. There were some special grants awarded for those types of programs through that as well. One of the largest expenses for the district, in addition to part of their staffing costs, is the retirement rate. So this shows what the net retirement rate with credits from the state of Michigan through state aid is 43.28% is what it costs the district for their employees to contribute into the Michigan Public School Employees Retirement Fund. And that is important because if you'll look here, if you go back 10 years, the dark blue line is active people working that belong to MIPSers, which is the retirement system. The lighter blue line is those that are retired. And you'll see now there's more retirees than there are active participants. So there's less people paying into the pool, more people drawing out. So, you know, this, for these years here in the middle, we're like, oh, it's getting close, and now it's crossed, and that's going to, those rates are going to continue to go up in order to fund that higher number of retirees instead of active workers in the program. The new pronouncement for this year's leases, I'm not sure it'll have a material effect on your financial statements. It's basically saying if you purchase or if you lease long-term assets, think copy machines, some districts lease a vehicle fleet or, you know, for custodial and maintenance staff, you would have to capitalize that, depreciate it, book it as a loan. It's just fund accounting terminology. It was supposed to go into effect last year, and they postponed it 1 year. So that will be needing to be implemented this next school year. Okay, go over the management letter really quick. It's a loose letter here in your packet. Last year being the year of transition, we had some comments, and a lot of the comments were maybe more pertaining to the previous administration or the previous business office staff. If you go to the bottom of the second page, it'll talk about, there's a comment on material audit adjustments. Last year we had material audit adjustments in order to get the trial balance ready for us to do our audit. This year we did not. So that's a test to Penny and her staff that we did not, there was no material audit adjustments that we needed to propose in order to complete the audited financial statements. The next comment was on federal grant compliance on time certifications and some payroll documentation within some of the federal Title I and IDEA programs. Last year we did sampling of some of those. They're called personal activity reports and time certifications and biannual certifications and things of that nature. We tested that again this year, and there were no issues of noncompliance with that. Everything was in great order with that this year as well. Payroll controls. Last year during our testing, we found that there were some timesheets that were not approved by the supervisor. We've tested that this year as well, and our sample didn't disclose any issues with that either. And then the internal service fund is your self-insurance fund. We did have an improvement in the self-insurance fund this year, but there still needs to be some more evaluation done with that fund. There's too large of a fund balance in that fund, and it needs to be evaluated, and I know there's been an adjustment done this school year as well, so we think that's continuing in the right direction. There were some unusual things, like with COVID, insurance premiums, you're self-insured for some, so the premiums dropped, people weren't going to the doctor, so it kind of skewed everything as well. So it was difficult to, be able to tell if it was just because of that, or if it was because there was an inherent issue with that fund. So Ms. Morgan is tasked with continuing to work on that on a go-forward basis, but there was a significant adjustment to that fund this year. And then there's a comment about the best asphalt dispute that is still not resolved. So from my understanding, that's still right. So okay, just want to make sure nothing had changed in the last week or two. So, which that was disclosed to us in our audit processes last year. Since it's still ongoing, as I'm sure you're all aware, that's just included in here that is, the vendor process of paying electronic payments has been changed and updated to prevent that from happening in the future. So that's all for the comments. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board?
So, yeah, Madam Chair.
Mr. Silva?
Last year's rating was Was it also unqualified or was it qualified? I forget.
It was unmodified, so it was good. It was the same.
good. Okay.
Yep.
So do you do it throughout the process of the auditing? Are you giving an overall grade, or are you doing it as you move along with certain sections that you may be auditing? How are you processing the general audit itself?
Well, when we do the audit, we basically, the audit process starts out that we come out in the spring, usually before year end, before June, and do what we call test work. That's our lingo.
Okay.
That's when we do the sample testing of disbursements. They basically pull, 40 to 50, we do a random sample for payroll and accounts payable to make sure they're following the processes, have the right documentation, before they even could have a final trial balance. And then so we kind of do that early just because we can. Then that kind of frees up a day or two in the summer months when we're busier. Then when we come out for what we call field work, and then during that time we do a lot of planning too. Meet with the various, I met with the cafeteria director, some of the federal programs people, that kind of stuff that we can do preliminary documentation of those programs. A lot of questionnaires and interview and walkthroughs, if you will, is what we do with our team and with Penny and her staff. Then when we come out and do, let's say, the more number crunching part of the audit, in like August, once she has the trial balances closed, we basically reconcile and tie out pretty much all of the revenues. Most of them are federal grants. We do a lot of analytical procedures, evaluations and reviews. Sometimes it might be that we look at something and it's, the analytics part of it comes off, so we have to dig deeper and have them pull documentation to evaluate what it was. Same thing with expenditures. We do it by function and object code. So if you're familiar with the account class structure, we have a couple Excel wizards in our office that are younger than me, and they do these elaborate spreadsheets, and they sort and filter it by the different number breaks. And it's great, the software can export. I've been auditing long enough that I remember doing it by hand. So the Excel is a wonderful thing for that. And then that kind of triggers us to investigate. There were certain functions where there was a decrease. Why did you have less salaries and wages in this function? And it was mainly because of COVID and virtual learning and reallocation as staff had to be moved into different positions or things like that. And then we'll actually pull that documentation and find out what teacher was moved and show where they went from one to the other and, that kind of stuff. Those are kind of some of the processes we go through. The actual grade, if you will, the unmodified opinion is something that's kind of done at the end. When you kind of evaluate everything together, when we're putting together this report, look at it and evaluate it. We know ahead of time when you're working on it, if it's gonna,
Sure.
it's very rare that you have, let's say, a modified opinion. Usually, if there's a district that's, that struggles that much with their finances, they know it, and they have some help from the state or their intermediate school district or whatever. Usually by the time, we're working with the district, we're hired by the board, to ensure, make sure the finances are accurate. And, we've had to recommend to districts that they hire a consulting firm.
Sure.
We have one right now that we're working with that we haven't been able to finish their audit because they have to hire another accounting firm to basically come in and clean up their books before the audit can be completed.
Sure.
So,
And then Penny, did you send this electronically?
Not yet. I will. I can.
okay, yeah, she has it.
She did, okay.
I just wanted to wait for everything so they could present first, that's all.
Yeah, it would've been nice to look at before, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
And the other question is the fund. I think she had mentioned the fund for I think it was the healthcare.
That's the the internal service fund.
Self-insurance, yeah. We had talked about that before, and I thought there was a plan in place to modify that, but I guess we haven't done anything, right?
We did modify it some. However, this is the year where really it's going to come into play
Sure.
to the modifications. But we did modify some last year, but this is the year with the transition in the staffing in the payroll department. There was some confusion as to how it was being done. So we're doing it a different way.
So is there a trigger date to reassess that fund prior to June 30th?
We're gonna look at it in January and see where we're at and see how it's progressing.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else from the board? I do have a question about this decline in MIPSR's membership.
Mhm.
Are we going to be able to sustain, future retirees?
Good question.
Um,
So, I mean, I guess, let's look here. So this little stuff down here shows your net cost. So basically what is happening is the state of Michigan is kicking in a percentage in order to help bridge that gap. So if you look 21, let's go to 2021, the second line down, you had a 14.5 offset in 147C state aid categorical revenue. So the net rate is 28.21%. So I guess this is somewhat, this shows the true rate, but then, and the state could stop that at any time. So, you know, but you can see over the past, and there was more years on here and I took them out. So it's gone from 25 to 28%. So you're not jumping up, the district is not paying 43%. The district's paying 28%.
I laugh because I think everybody in the world would love to figure out, you know, how to maintain
No,
that.
I know what you're saying, but, just looking at these numbers, it kind of, you know,
It's
something.
concerning.
Yeah, it's
But
concerning.
again, it's
because
across the board.
Right.
Yeah, it's every industry.
We, yeah,
The
what
entire
are we
state of
going to
Michigan.
do to make sure that we can sustain this, you know, in the coming years, right? Okay, Ms. Kaminsky, go ahead.
I had a question, and I know we can't discuss other districts or anything, but do you find this is rather reflective of the other districts that you've dealt with as well? Are we?
This?
Yes.
This is statewide.
Oh, this is statewide.
statewide.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep, so yes, this is reflective.
Okay,
This is the entire state of Michigan has this same graph.
okay.
So when you talk to your representatives and senators, reemphasize the importance of maneuvering funds into making sure this gap doesn't widen.
And also, when you go back into the history of that retirement rate, back in the late 1990s, the retirement rate was 7.12% that the districts used to pay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
if you go really far back, I don't know if anybody here goes back as far as when I started auditing, the state of Michigan funded that 100% for the school districts, back in the really old days.
What's the old?
I mean, I don't know when it stopped, but I mean, I started school auditing in like late 80s, early 90s.
That's the old thing?
Yeah, but people are living longer, thankfully, and
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
it's just the
So-
way it goes.
yeah.
Ms. Janu?
I don't really have so much of a question. I'm gonna laugh at myself, but, so I took the, MASB course on, you know, the audit and just to kind of familiarize myself with it, because last year I was a new board member and didn't have much background, you know, into what the process was like. So I kind of agree with Mr. Sable that it would have been nice to receive this ahead of time, because personally, I mean, it's not really a question for you, so I don't know how long this was completed, and I didn't realize, I guess I should have asked for a digital copy of it as well, because I get that you're presenting it, but again, from myself, just trying to understand it, I don't have the background that Mr. Sabo does in, you know, in finance, so I'm trying to process it, but, I mean, it looks good, and it's great, I just, again, just for personal, I mean, it would have been nice to be able to review it prior.
Doesn't look that good.
I'm just saying, you know, but
The
thank
things
you.
that stick out most are the fact that our numbers are dropping, but we're not losing money, which is the
Right.
funny part. If you look at 2018,
Right.
that's like an anomaly. I mean, honestly, it just jumps off the chart. Your numbers are really high and you still lost money. So the expenditures were through the roof, and only God knows what was going on at that time. I wasn't here, so,
Right.
and most of us weren't here,
Right,
so.
right.
But nonetheless, that's
Going in the right direction.
correct. It's
Yeah.
trending in the right
Yes, there
direction,
you go.
more than 1 year, so.
Yes, we have 2-year history now.
Though, that's a
in the right
line,
direction.
so we gotta get
Yeah.
the trend now.
There you go.
2 dots is a line, 3 dots is a trend.
If you have any questions after tonight, I'm available. Penny has my contact information, so, if, as you're reading this, you know, in your nighttime reading or whatever, and any questions crop up, feel free to reach out and contact me, and I can, try to help answer any questions that you have.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Elzayat?
I just wanted to say thank you to Peggy
Yeah.
for, making sure that, those items that were glaring last year were corrected and not a problem this year, and, for implementing those steps to make sure that all those gaps were filled.
You're welcome.
So, thank you very much for your hard work.
I second that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving on. We're done with okay, we're moving on to the business report.
Oh, sorry, okay. Number 1 is the approval of requisitions. The attached list of requisitions are items that buildings or departments would like to purchase for the upcoming needs. The requisitions have gone through all the appropriate approval processes and have been approved by administration for purchase. In addition, there are funds available to make these purchases. Once the requisitions are approved, they will be processed and purchase orders will be sent out.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabah?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the requisitions per attachment 6A1.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Sabah, supported by Ms. Janoon, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the requisition per attachment 6A1. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2, approval of confirming purchase orders. The attached confirming purchase order are items that needed to be purchased prior to the board approval. The purchase was for football playoff gear.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Kaminsky?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the confirming purchase orders per attachment 6A2.
Support.
We have a motion from Ms. Kaminsky, supported by Ms. Janoon, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the confirming purchase orders per attachment 6A2. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I abstain due to conflict.
Okay, motion carries.
Number 3, acceptance of the June 30th, 2021 audited financial statements. The Crestwood Board, I missed my definition and reasoning on there, isn't there? But that's okay. So the audit that was presented, we would like the Board of Education to accept the audited financials.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabah?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education accepts the audit reports and the SAS 115 required communication letter for the year ending June 30th, 2021, as presented by our independent auditors, Taylor and Morgan.
Support.
I didn't hear who supported that.
Danielle.
Yeah. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Sabah, supported by Ms. Zelzayat, that the Crestwood Board of Education accept the audit reports and the SAS 115 required communication letter for the year ended June 30th, 2021, presented by our independent auditors, Taylor and Morgan. Is there any discussion?
Just a recommendation of the secretary to change that from 3021 to 2021.
I saw
Oh.
that, but I didn't read
Yeah.
it.
And
Right.
I had written down, so, Madam Chair.
Yes. Ms.
So I
Jones.
guess in the future, to be able to at least to see it prior, I mean, I know she presented the main points, but I mean, to at least be able to, you know, it's the audit, so it's one of the main things that us as a board are responsible for making sure is correct, or, you know, where we're supposed to be. So I would have hoped to have seen it prior, but, that's it.
It is noted. I will ensure that it's done.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, Madam Chair, while I agree with Trustee Janoon, obviously the general accounting practices, generally accepted accounting practices really guide this and the concern. And I'm with you, because I agree. I
I'm just
want them
saying,
ahead of time.
this is
100%.
the biggest
100%.
part of being a board member is
Correct.
looking at.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Number 4, approval of the overnight trip for drama students. The Crestwood High School would like to attend the Michigan Thespian Festival in Lansing, Michigan, December 9th through December 11th. Approximately 15 students of the drama club will depart at approximately 4 p.m. on December 9th and return at approximately 11 p.m. on December 11th.
Madam Chair? Ms. Fawaz?
Recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the overnight trip to the Michigan Thespian Festival for the Crestwood High School students, see attachment 6A4.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Ms. Fawaz, supported by Ms. Janine, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the overnight trip to the Michigan Thespian Festival for the Crestwood High School students. See attachment 6A4. Is there any discussion? I guess my only question is, how many parents do we have going?
I do not believe there are parents going.
None? How many staff members?
There's there's 4 adults going on the trip.
And they're all staff?
2 staff, and I don't recognize the other 2 names, so they could be parents, but the iChats were done.
I thought I saw something that said that there were some chaperone parents.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Their parents? They are parents.
So they did have,
Yep.
their iChats?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That's all, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Lazar, personnel reports, please.
All right, so to start off our personnel report today, our first action item is the appointment of RMS drama teacher, Ms. Rita Hamadi Beydoun. Ms. Beydoun has earned her bachelor from the University of Michigan Dearborn. She has served as an English department head and worked to plan and coordinate book fairs, fundraising events, and yearly poetry slams. She has training in WIDA and PBIS, as well as systematic vocabulary instruction. Ms. Beydoun also volunteers in the city's local Little Olympics and is an active volunteer in local youth theater programs.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Janine.
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Rita Hamadi Beydoun as a drama teacher at Riverside Middle School for the 21-22 school year, according to the CFT contract BA Step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A1.
Support. We have a motion on the floor from Ms. Janoon, supported by Ms. Elzayat, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Rita Hamadi Beydoun as a drama teacher at Riverside Middle School for the 21-22 school year, according to the CFT contract BA Step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A1. Is there any discussion?
7A2.
I'm sorry?
7A2.
I have 7A1.
Should be
7A1.
one.
Here, up here.
7A1, sorry. I just want to say that I don't know Ms. Beydoun, but I've heard wonderful things about her, and I know that she's done a lot of volunteering at the middle school, so we want to thank her for that. And she comes to us with a great background knowledge. So welcome to Ms. Beydoun. With that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the second action item is the appointment of an accounts payable bookkeeper, Ms. Carlene Cairns. Ms. Cairns has 17 years of experience as an administrative assistant and 4 years of experience in accounts payable. She has experience in the Smart Financial System, Microsoft Office Suite, MyStar, and Journal Entry. She utilizes an analytic approach in assessing information, has strong organizational skills, and works to develop strong relationships with all stakeholders. It's worth noting that Ms. Cairns is also a graduate of Crestwood High School.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabal.
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Carlene Cairns as the accounts payable bookkeeper at central office for the 2021-2022 school year, according to the central office non-director contract step 5, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A2.
Support. We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Sabah, supported by Ms. Fawaz, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Carlene Cairns as the accounts payable bookkeeper at central office for the 21-22 school year, according to the central office non-director contract step 5, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A2. Is there any discussion?
Just want to say congratulations, and I love to see alumni come back. and
Can I
work
ask
for
how
the
long ago
district.
she?
Yeah, how long ago she graduated? Regardless, she's a Crestwood grad.
Well, congratulations to her. Okay, with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome.
Our third action item is appointment of a counselor for Riverside Middle School, Miss Mona Berry. Miss Berry earned her bachelor's in elementary education from the University of Michigan Dearborn and her master's in school counseling from Eastern Michigan University. She has 15 years of experience in education, with 4 of those years in counseling. She has served as a department head, class sponsor, National Honor Society advisor, and mentor. She takes pride in ensuring people feel heard and valued and has a strong desire to support students in the areas of positive peer relations, academic achievement, and coping with life challenges.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Kaminsky.
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Mona Berry as counselor at Riverside Middle School for the 2021-2022 school year according to the CFT contract, MA Step 10, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A3.
Support. Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Ms. Kaminsky, supported by Ms. Janoon, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Mona Berry as a counselor at Riverside Middle School for the 21-22 school year, according to the CFT contract MA Step 10, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A3. Is there any discussion? I just want to say that honestly, I'm not related to Mona Berry. I don't know Mona Berry, but I do know that this is the second Mona Berry that's going to be in this building. So we're going to have a Mona Berry 1 and a Mona Berry 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. With that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Our fourth action item tonight is the appointment of a counselor for Riverside Middle School, Mr. Craig Kiefer. Mr. Kiefer earned his Bachelor of Science and Master of Arts in School Counseling from Eastern Michigan University. He has 29 years of experience as an educator, serving 9 years in classroom teaching and 20 years as a counselor. He has extensive training in restorative practices, MTSS, career facilitation, social emotional learning, and trauma. He has also served as a 9th grade transition counselor and department chair, participated in link crew, and supervised building testing and AP placement. Mr. Kiefer is looking forward to working with middle school students in order to assist in preparing them for high school.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabah?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Craig Kiefer as a counselor at Riverside Middle School for the 2021-2022 school year according to the CFT contract MA Step 12, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A4.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Sabal, supported by Ms. Kaminsky, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Craig Kiefer as a counselor at Riverside Middle School for the 21-22 school year according to the CFT contract MA Step 12, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A4. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Ms. Kaminsky?
I just want to say, great find. Credentials are amazing, and I think it's really important that we have both women and men for the kids to go to. So I think this is a really positive move.
Anyone else? Ms. Janoon?
It seems he's been doing this for, quite a few years, so he's definitely going to bring a lot of experience to the table. So welcome and congratulations.
Okay, with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Our fifth action item for this evening is the appointment of a food services lunch monitor for Highview Elementary, Miss Haley Green. Ms. Green is currently working as a safety guard at Riverside Middle School and Highview Elementary. She's excited to be spending the remainder of her day monitoring students during lunch at Highview.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Fawaz?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Haley Green as a lunch monitor for the 21-22 school year according to the CFT contract Step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A5.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Ms. Fawaz, supported by Ms. Elzayat, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Haley Green as a lunch monitor for the 21-22 school year according to the CFS contract Step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A5. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Our sixth action item is the appointment of food services lunch monitor at Kenlock Elementary, Ms. Rasha Gadar. Ms. Gadar has volunteered her time with the Crestwood School District. She's excited to be joining as a lunch monitor at Kenlock.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabo?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Rasha Gadar as a lunch monitor for the 2021-2022 school year according to the CFS contract step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A6.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Sabo, supported by Ms. Janine, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the hiring of Rasha Gadar as a lunch monitor for the 21-22 school year according to the CFS contract step 1, effective pending acceptable criminal background check and other employment documentation as required by law. See attachment 7A6. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Our seventh action item is the approval of a letter of understanding. We are informed by the union leadership that the CFT membership voted on and passed the letter of understanding regarding longevity pay and signing bonus with a vote of 194 yes to 4 no.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabo?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the letter of understanding with regard to longevity pay and signing bonus. See attachment 7A7.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Sabo, supported by Ms. Fawaz, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the letter of understanding with regards to longevity pay and signing bonuses. See attachment 7A7. Is there any discussion?
Just a comment, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just want to thank you guys, because I know how difficult it is right now with the profession in general, and maintaining the best teachers and bringing on the best teachers is a challenge for every school district, and you guys have done fantastic. And I think this is just a step in the process, and you guys have identified that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Fawaz?
Does this apply to the hirees that we approved today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Action item number 8 is the established criteria for selection of candidates. Attached are the proposed criteria and timeline for filling the vacancy on the Crestwood School District Board of Education created by the resignation of Ed Garcia. They are based on the processes followed in filing the last board vacancy and are in accordance with board policy.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Sabo?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the criteria for selection of a new board member.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the criteria for selection of a new board member. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Ms. Fawaz?
Is there any, I don't recall, it could be on me, but I don't recall seeing the criteria in this packet. Has there been any change since the last time? And especially for like the new board members, did they get a copy of the criteria?
It's in here.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's
7A8, trustee
It's in your
Fawaz.
personnel
Thank
report.
you. See, I knew I missed it.
Wasn't the same as the other stuff.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, the only thing well, it's not gonna matter because there's only one candidate that applied, but I personally do not recall seeing this with previous. Thankfully, it's not gonna be a hard decision here. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And the last action item for tonight is the approval of candidates for interview for the Board of Education trustee.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Kaminsky?
I recommend that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the selected candidate to interview for the Board of Education vacant position.
Support.
We have a motion on the floor from Ms. Kaminsky, supported by Ms. Janun, that the Crestwood Board of Education approve the selected candidate to interview for the Board of Education vacant position All in, is there any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms.
I'm really happy that we got someone to apply. I'm extremely disappointed, so I guess I'm on my soapbox, that we didn't have more people take an interest. Certainly, if there's something that someone doesn't like, we hear a lot from everybody, and you have to be here for the good and you have to be here for the bad. So I'm disappointed in our community for not showing more enthusiasm for this position.
Okay, again, if it's my fault, but I don't see where, the person, I mean, I hear from her.
So if I may, Madam President, when you look at the timeline, the vacancy was created after the last board meeting. Therefore, state law states that immediately,
She's just saying who did.
no, I know, but just to make clear to the community, state law states that you must immediately start the process from the date of receiving the resignation. We received the resignation letter as of October 26th, the very next day. October 27th, we started the process because you must fill the position within 30 days. Therefore, being that the next scheduled board meeting, which is today, occurred after the resignation came in, this is why this timeline was being voted on today. And today was the due date by 4 p.m. for individuals to apply. And therefore, that is why the individual's name is not in the packet, because we received it at 4 o'clock today. I just wanted to make it clear to the community, to everyone, that we are following the timeline.
Madam Chair?
So,
I'm sorry. I just want to correct the dates, because she did announce it in the meeting on the 25th.
That's the end.
Yeah, he said the 26th and the 27th. It's the 25th.
I'm sorry, was it 25th? My apologies,
She
I had the
announced it
date.
at the meeting on the
25th.
25th, made it known to the public on the 25th, and it was posted on the 26th.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, my apologies, I am off by one day.
It wasn't the day after. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
thank
clarify
you.
that.
No,
so that-
thank you. I was
yeah,
off
she
by one day.
She did what she was supposed to do.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, trustee Sabo.
also, I guess, I'm not done. So if it closed at 4 o'clock today, this is the list of names, or how do we know it's the one name, or, I guess, how are we getting this info right now and voting?
So they bring the information to us in the packet. Whoever wants to apply, that's their application.
Okay.
So we don't give a list of names, anything. That is their application. As of 4 o'clock today, that was the only application that was given to us at the board office, and it was brought over for today's meeting. The problem that we face is because you have a 30-day time limit, that today was the date in which it was due, and we have a board meeting today.
Okay.
Because
So
we still
that-
have to schedule interviews, and if you look at the timeline, the Board of Education will have a special meeting to interview candidates on November 15th. And that allows for whomever is going to be the new board member to be sworn in on November 22nd.
So that will be provided to us after this meeting?
Correct, you will all get copies of all the candidates,
Or candidates?
or candidate, of course, yes.
So,
Ms. Janu?
So I know, in other, well, when I was appointed, well, when I had applied, as well as when Danielle applied, I know that, and I'm not saying we have to do that, but I know that the names were announced when they had, on the day of the meeting that, it was voted upon. Do we have to wait until the 22nd to swear that person in, or can you just do it on the day of the interviews?
So if you put on the agenda that you're gonna vote that person in, you have to actually put on the agenda for the
Yeah.
15th.
Yeah, I see
If
no.
you choose to do that, the
Yeah.
board has that right.
Okay,
They have that right to do so. Sometimes boards don't, because they don't know how many candidates they're going to get.
right,
If there's gonna be discussion, so on and so forth, then they wait to vote until the next board meeting.
right,
So it is totally
this
up to the
point,
board. If you
yeah.
choose to add to the agenda that you want to vote the individual in, or whomever you choose that day, you can do so.
okay.
Madam Chair, just for the sake of time, and to get things rolling,
Yeah,
to trustee Janu's point, I motion that we add an agenda item for the November 15th meeting for the one candidate,
right,
that we add the agenda item to vote on addition to the Board of Trustees.
Support.
Yeah, I agree with you, because we also want them to start receiving the information
Correct.
to be ready for the next meeting, so
So I
yeah,
support
I'm
that
in
as well.
agreement.
Okay.
So are we saying interview and vote?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did put a motion forward, it was
And I
supported.
support it.
think we,
It's noted, so if, Kristen, if you can add it to the, agenda next week, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, so the community is aware,
Just wanna say-
the requirements are that you, from the date of resignation, you have 30 days to swear in a new board member. So we're within those 30 days, so we're meeting the state mandate.
Perfect.
I-
Okay.
I just want to say that it kind of takes away from the excitement of not knowing who. So,
Okay. With that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, can
Yes.
I make a comment to Vice President Kaminsky's point on the community? I am also disappointed that more people are not willing to take part. This is not an easy role. I think all of us know that. You know, we tend to all have our own opinions, but we all have the same passion for the children. And I think that for the community to take part in such activity, or I think of this as an honor. This is an honor for me. Even though sometimes I go home scratching my head because I have such a bad headache, wondering what just happened. I realize that we're all doing it for the children, and I challenge the community to take a stronger part in not only the school district, but also in the individual schools. And I see this around the athletic programs. Dr. Masalam, you've probably heard from some of the coaches. Parent participation is 75% of the child's development.
Yep.
Whether it be in the education in the classroom, or whether it be in social, emotional skills, or athletic abilities. And I just want to see this community take part more in the lives of these children in any way that you can help. And I am going to reiterate what Vice President Kaminsky said. I'm a little disappointed. I do want to see this community step up. You can't get to the next level, as Dr. Masalam is always talking about, without the support of the community, and we need that.
On a positive note, what I want to say is,
That was positive.
No. What I want to say is, I think we have a good candidate. I don't
I
know
do
him
too.
personally, but I think that we're on the right path where we have somebody that will come in and hit the ground running. So I'm happy to say that I'm not too disappointed. I don't know him personally, but I
I'm
know
not
that
disappointed in
he's
the
going to be.
candidate. No. No, that's not what I meant. You know what? If I had 10, I think the cream rises to the top. I really think he would have been fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, but I'd like to see more. That's all. More
Right.
participation.
Wait, definitely, parent
That's all.
participation, that's without a doubt.
That's all I want.
Okay, Dr. Masalam, any comments?
No, none on my end in reference to that, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Okay, anything from the board?
No.
Do a final vote on that.
We did vote on this. Yeah, we approved the candidate, right?
No, no, she just said what
Yeah.
this.
I'm sorry? Any more comments from the board?
I think he had a report, though.
Well, yeah, just on this, superintendent's report, but
Yes.
of course.
Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Are you ready? Oh,
Yes,
my
Dr. Masalam,
apologies.
yep.
Okay. So superintendent's report, no action items, some informational items. First, end of the card marking was Friday, November 5th. Now that we're in semesters, that allows for us to give updates to parents and students on their progress, which leads us into fall parent-teacher conferences. We will be sending out information on that this week. We will be having somewhat of a blended parent-teacher conferences. Parents who wish to be face-to-face, we're going to have that, and then we're also going to allow for virtual for parents who would like to have virtual conference. So teachers will be sending out sign-up sheets. Last year, when we had virtual conferences, the teachers stated that they had many more parents involved and active in it. So we're hoping to expand upon that. But we're also going to, have an option where parents do want to have a face-to-face meeting, they will still have that opportunity. CHS fall play, the Crestwood High School fall play, the play that goes wrong is it will be premiering, I believe, this weekend, if I'm correct. Saturday, yes. So I encourage everyone to go out and see that. November 12th is senior citizen performance, And then November 13th, 14th, 19th, and 20th are the other dates for the play. And then real quick, just I have a quick commentary. I sent out a video today, just my wife told me, Yusuf, make sure it's under 2.5 minutes. So I had to do it like 10 times to make sure it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But basically, what I sent out to the community was exactly what Vice President Kaminsky and Trustee Saba on the board has been mentioning. It's involvement. It's working together. These last 2 months have been stressful. They've been, not just for Crestwood. I mean, it's not unique. It's across the board. And when I speak to superintendents and others, across the state and the county, it's been a difficult transition these 2 months. But I have to say that, the vast majority of staff that I speak to, and I say staff because it's not just the teachers, it's food, it's secretarial, it's, custodial, everyone. They're putting in a lot of time and they want to find solutions, and we're working together and we're listening and we're talking. But we have to be together as a community. We have to work together. We have to reiterate the importance of, student involvement. We have to reiterate the importance of if you were exposed to somebody with COVID-19, stay home. Because it's a community approach. When we look at where we are as a district, prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of work to do. Then the pandemic hit. Now we're 2 months into it. And I tell everyone, I just completed my first 2 years as superintendent. But the irony behind it is in the last 2 months is when I've been really able to see deep where our needs are. And I want the community and the board and everyone to know, no one is sitting on their hands, no one is sitting by idle to wait for things to happen. We're actively involved, but we need to work together as a community, as a school district. The old adage that it takes a village to raise a child, that is not just a saying, it is the reality. And being your superintendent, being someone that knows many members of this community, I am very frank when I say, if we don't come together and support one another and find solutions together, it's going to be a long trudge in the mud. We have to do this together. We have to find the positives. Yes, not everything is perfect. Mistakes will happen. But when we come together, we can find solutions. If we focus on the 90% of the things that are going right, and we identify solutions for the other 10%, we will go so much further than spending all our time on the 10% of the things that are dragging us down. So I want to thank the board for your support. I want to thank my team for the support. I want to thank the community that has been actively involved, and I really want to thank our staff who have been putting in hours beyond hours of what people do not see. There are a lot of them that do that. So let's come together, let's work together, let's remember, it's only been 2 months since we've been back after 1.5 years, basically, of a hiatus. And I see the positive, and I foresee a great future for all of us. So thank you, board.
Thank you, Dr. Masalo. Public comments, please?
I have a board comment real quick.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to take board comments just as soon as we get the public comments.
Yeah.
If that's okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. We have Mr. Ron Frenzy. If you could please come up. Can you please read the, comments?
This meeting of the board is held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. This is not the time for debate or argument. Do not mention any student or staff names. In order to permit a fair allotment of time to participants, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. The president may extend this time to 5 minutes per person when needed. Up to a half hour is provided for public input. Direct all questions to the board president.
Thank you, Mr. Noon. Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Okay, my name is Ron Frenzy. I live on Fairwood Street here in Dearborn Heights. And over the past couple of meetings, I've came here to talk about some of the negative effects that students have now with working with Facebook and Instagram. But I wanted to come here today to talk about 2 examples that I observed personally. So I want to give a little bit of background and give 2 examples. Okay. During the past 20 summers, I drive down to Galveston, Texas, which is 1,400 miles one way, and act as a camp counselor at a camp named Sea Camp. They have their own teaching staff, which teaches 12 to 18-year-olds all about the life at sea. As a former high school teacher, I used to teach chemistry and math. They hire people like me not to teach, but if any discipline matters arise, I am asked to handle any of these types of problems. During the past 19 years, no problems at all, discipline-wise, ever occurred, ever. In Texas, all the teachers and the students would address me as Mr. and would respond to me as yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am. Or if it's a lady, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. They're super polite in Texas. And I asked, well, what happened? Why is that? They just said it was the Southern way of being polite. But this summer, everything changed completely. No more yes, sir, no, sir. It was all gone. 2 other teachers and myself were in charge of 25, 13 to 14-year-olds, both boys and girls, and 4 boys were just terrible. After the first few days, we had to sit right next to them in class in the cafeteria. They had to complete a poster board on the subject of some sort of sea life of their choosing, and that was a complete mess. At the end of the week, they had to give a presentation on their project in front of the parents, and they actually tore up their project right on stage to the shock of everybody. On the second to last day of camp, one of these boys was so inappropriate with another girl, the staff called their parents, and he was actually kicked out of camp. That never happened before, ever. Another boy, just before he left to go home, smeared Vaseline all over his bed, his floor, his desk. The anger in these boys were just over the top. So that's very unusual. For 19 years, no problem, and all of a sudden, terrible conditions. And the second example, what was worse, and especially sad, was this. During the final hours of camp, all the campers were invited to go down to the docks and do some fishing. Towards the last 30 minutes of fishing, a short, blonde, 13-year-old girl pulled on my shirt and said, "Mister, do you think I'm fat?" I said, "What?" And I said, "No, no, no." A couple of minutes later, she pulled on my shirt again and said, "Mister, do you think I'm ugly?" And I said, "No." I said, "Who said that to you?" And she just started to cry. And I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "My friends are about to go home, and I'm leaving, and I'd like to leave fishing and wish them goodbye." But just recently, I realized she was not sad at her newfound friends leaving, but that she was going back to her own make-believe life on Facebook, where many, many people would tell her she was fat and ugly, and she would never meet these people. She would even never know them. So that is 2 examples that just like over the top. I mean, it never happened in 19 years. Ugh. So I was really happy to see these ladies come here and talk about there's an emotional component, but maybe they could talk about, you know, what all these, because all these kids are on social media, maybe bring that into their social life. I think that's a real good point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, any board comments? Mr. Sabo, we can start with you.
Yeah, we were talking about community participation, and one of the, I think is a fantastic nonprofit in our community, is the Amity Foundation, has their annual turkey drive and meal prep this Saturday at 9 a.m. at their building at 850 North Telegraph Road in Dearborn. Just think of all the people during the holidays that can't afford what we can afford with the blessings that we have. And the Amity Foundation has really been the bridge to give those people the things that they should have, the basic necessities in life. And I think it's time for all of us to step up. I'm going to try to get quite a few volunteers ourselves, and having spoken to someone from the organization, they need a lot of help this year. Again, it's Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at 850 North Telegraph Road in Dearborn. It's the old Comerica Bank on Telegraph between Ford Road and Cherry Hill. If you can attend and be a part of helping give back to the community, it would be a great opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Fawaz?
Yes, thank you. So I think the Kenlock ladies did a really nice presentation today, and and it kind of just triggered the question I know we've talked about before, but especially with the title funds, can we look at implementing the after-school tutoring for, especially like math, English, or, you know, these core subjects? I don't know how soon we can, you know, get to that, but I saw the email for the high school already starting to implement, which was wonderful.
Yeah.
But I would love to see it, especially for middle school on down.
Middle school is putting one together now, and then elementary, I believe they're gonna be starting one, second semester.
Wonderful. And then to all the veterans out there, this week is, just want to say Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
So, thank you to all of them, and nothing else. Thank you. Can I ask a question? I'm sorry, Mr. Newbeck. Do we have like partnerships with like Access? Don't they have that 2020 and all that?
So we are partners with Access,
Okay.
and we have, our last conversation with Access is that when the next round of the 21st Century Grant comes out, the Crestwood schools would like to be part of it.
Awesome.
So we're on the radar and we're having conversations.
Good. Good to hear. Thank you. Ms. Jenner?
Nope, I just want to say congratulations to all of our new hires. Excited for next week's board meeting as well, so we can interview a candidate. And I had something else, but I can't remember, so just.
Ms. Kaminsky, anything from you?
I just wanted to piggyback on Dr. Masalam, the plays that are done at our high school are fantastic. They are like going downtown and watching a true performance. It's worth seeing, so I encourage everyone to come out either this weekend or next weekend. And then as far as community involvement, you don't have to have a child in school currently. My children graduated long ago. I still care, and these are still our kids, and this is our community. We're doing a lot of things. The value of your homes are very much impacted by community involvement in the school districts and what we do in partnership with the city. So again, Mr. Frenzy, thank you for coming out and participating, and I encourage other people to take part as well. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Kaminsky. What I wanted to do was to reiterate what Dr. Masalam said about COVID and how important it is to be honest, because really you don't know how you're going to affect the next person. Maybe you'll have those slight symptoms, but the next person, it could be detrimental to their life. So please, if you do have these cases, just be truthful. Think of it as it could be your parent that could be affected by this. Please make sure to, you know, call in, let us know what's happening. We don't share that information with anybody. We just want to make sure that we keep everybody safe, including you. With that, Ms. Elzayat?
I just want to say thank you to the Wayne County Health Department
Oh, yes.
for coming to Riverside and
Oh, yeah.
administering
Thank you.
vaccine. We really appreciate their support, and thank you to everybody who came in and got their booster.
That was me.
And I want to piggyback on that and thank Trustee Alzia because she helped us with that organization. But again, thank you.
All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.